Somewhere over Afghanistan, a Taliban fighter looks up. He hears nothing. Then the sky tears open. 65 depleted uranium rounds per second, a wall of 30mm fire moving faster than sound. By the time the noise reaches the ground, the men it was aimed at no longer exist. What you are about to see is 5 moments where the A-10 Warthog didn't just suppress the enemy, it erased them. From a Wagner mercenary column obliterated in 45 minutes to 12 Warthogs dismantling an entire ISIS territorial network. This is the moment when A-10 Warthog turns Taliban into pink mist. April 23, 2011, Afghanistan. 2 pararescuemen are crouched in a ravine in total darkness. Behind them, a wrecked Kiowa helicopter burns. In front of them, 80 Taliban fighters are moving through the rocks, closing to within 50 meters. The Apaches are dry. The Pedro rescue birds have already been driven off by ground fire. There is no extraction. 20,000 feet above that ravine, Captain Mike Hilkert of the 74th Fighter Squadron hears the emergency call crack across his radio. 2 Americans, 50 meters, no support. He banks his A-10 toward the coordinates and begins the longest 6 hours of his life and the most decorated single close air support mission of the entire Afghan war. Hilkert doesn't just fly to the fight, he takes command of it. The moment he checks in, there is no coordinated airspace above that ravine, just aircraft stacking up with no one managing them. Hilkert assumes command on the spot. 21 aircraft, 37 radio frequencies. He cycles through them simultaneously, coordinating with CAOC for airspace restrictions, patching in JPRC to hold the rescue corridor open, talking rotary wing assets off collision headings, all while his fuel gauge bleeds down. He plugs into a tanker while still working the radios, fuel hose connected, one hand on the stack, 30 lives depending on the circuit not breaking. The Pavehawks are in the wire. 2 rescue birds threading through mountain darkness, dropping toward that ravine, and every Taliban gun position in Kapisa is now tracking them. Hilkert sees it happening in real time from the cockpit. He rolls his 25,000-pound airframe directly between the helicopters and the muzzle flashes. A deliberate, repeated interception documented word for word in his official citation. He becomes the target. Rounds tracking the Pavehawks are now chasing him instead. Once, then again, then again. Each pass pulls enemy attention onto an aircraft. Small arms cannot kill, buying the helicopters the seconds they need to descend, extract, and climb out. That is the human shield. But Hilkert isn't finished. While he's drawing fire with his airframe, 9 separate missile launches are tracking him through the dark, and not one of them connects. 9 SAMs in 6 hours. Each launch lights up Hilkert's threat display, a streak of exhaust climbing toward him through the Afghan dark. He brakes hard, dumps chaff, pulls angles that slam him into his seat at forces that would black out an untrained pilot. The missile claws past. 9 times the Taliban pulls the trigger on a surface-to-air missile. 9 times Hilkert is still flying. And he never breaks orbit, not once. On the final gun run, the last Taliban machine gun position is 50 meters from American personnel. Hilkert rolls in. The GAU-8 fires. In under 2 seconds, that position stops existing. That is the kill shot that ends the siege. 30 Americans walk out of that ravine alive. That number is stamped into Hilkert's award citation. The Air Force awarded Hilkert the Distinguished Flying Cross with Valor. The 37-frequency communication log entered the official record as the single most complex airspace management event in the Afghan War's CAS history. But if one pilot holding one piece of Afghan sky is the most decorated single CAS mission of the war, wait until you see what 12 Warthogs did to an entire country in 90 days. July 27. The 74th Expeditionary Fighter Squadron arrives with exactly 12 A-10s. 12 airframes against an enemy holding territory the size of the United Kingdom. Over those 90 days, the 12 jets account for 44% of every coalition target struck across Iraq and Syria under Operation Inherent Resolve. CENTCOM battle damage assessments confirm it. the highest kill-to-airframe ratio of any platform in the campaign. When the smoke clears, ISIS has lost 99% of its held territory. The problem the 12 jets kept hitting wasn't just numbers, it was steel. ISIS didn't fight with RPGs alone. By 2017, they were rolling captured Iraqi army MRAPs and up-armored vehicles through Mosul's streets and Deir ez-Zor's supply corridors. Hellfires rattled them. Small arms did nothing. Even some coalition strikes produced mobility kills, not kills. The GAU-8 ended that argument permanently. Each depleted uranium round ignites on penetration, burning at 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit as it punches through vehicle steel. The armor vaporizes from the inside. The secondary explosions and gun camera footage aren't from external warheads, they're the vehicle's own fuel and ammunition cooking off after the DU round has already done its work. That is the GAU-8's answer to armor. But while those 12 jets were posting their highest kill numbers in a generation, something extraordinary was happening in Washington. The Air Force was simultaneously filing paperwork to kill every one of them. FY 2026. That was the year the Air Force officially targeted to retire every remaining A-10, all 162 of them, permanently. While the 74th EFS was posting kill statistics no other coalition platform could match, Air Force leadership was submitting congressional budget testimony arguing the Warthog was obsolete. 12 jets were simultaneously dismantling an entire terrorist state and being condemned in the same fiscal year by the institution that owned them. Congressional representatives pushed back. The numbers from Iraq and Syria made the retirement argument difficult to sustain publicly, but the Air Force kept filing the paperwork. But the argument only holds if the footage proves it. And the gun cameras on those 12 jets recorded everything. DoD released footage from the 74th EFS deployment shows it in cold thermal clarity. ISIS vehicle columns moving in tight formation, confident, unhurried. Then a single pass. The GAU-8 walks a line of depleted uranium through steel and fuel. Within seconds, secondary explosions bloom white-hot on the FLIR feed. Those collapsing thermal signatures let CENTCOM analysts build a confirmed kill count rather than an estimate. That is the confirmed evidence behind ISIS armor annihilation. But documented devastation against armored columns is one thing. What happens when Taliban fighters have your convoy pinned on open ground and the only aircraft overhead needs to thread a gun run between your own trucks? Kandahar Province, 2009. A U.S. Army patrol rolls down a hardball road through a flat, open valley. The Taliban had pre-positioned fighters along a dry riverbed running parallel to the road, a natural trench, chest deep, invisible from the vehicles until the first RPG round detonates against the lead truck. The convoy is pinned. Exposed soldiers, disabled vehicles, and a riverbed packed with fighters who have perfect cover from ground fire. That dried wadi is a kill box. And it just became a perfect gun run axis. The tick call goes out. Overhead, an A-10 pilot rolls toward the grid. From altitude, the pilot aligns the gun run axis down the length of the dry riverbed. The Taliban's natural trench transformed into a fatal corridor. He pickles in at roughly 6,000 feet, nose dropping, the targeting reticle walking toward the muzzle flashes below. Then the GAU-8 opens up, 65 rounds per second. The depleted uranium penetrators tear through the wadi floor before the sound of the gun even reaches the ground. The impacts arrive first. Dirt, rock, and fighters cease to exist in a churning line of detonations that walks their entire position in under 2 seconds. The convoy soldiers hear the sound, then silence from the riverbed. That first pass doesn't end the fight. A secondary Taliban position, a compound wall 200 meters north, opens up immediately. PKM rounds start walking toward the convoy. The pilot has been watching it on the targeting pod the entire time. He doesn't make another gun pass. He reaches for the Maverick. The AGM-65 locks the thermal signature of the wall. One trigger pull. The missile tracks in flat and low, and the compound wall ceases to exist in a single white flash. That is the weapon mix that makes the A-10 unlike anything else in the inventory. GAU-8 for open ground, Maverick for the hardened position, both in the same aircraft. The ambush is collapsing. When the dust settles over that Kandahar road, the ground force commander keys his radio. His words go into the official record, verbatim: ambush broken, Threat neutralized, convoy moving. The after-action report counts the thermal signatures on the gun camera footage. The FLIR doesn't lie. Each heat bloom marks a position that stopped returning fire. The final tally from that single sortie, GAU-8 passes +1 Maverick, confirms over a dozen Taliban fighters neutralized into the pink mist along that riverbed, the ambush cell destroyed as a functional unit. The pinned-down convoy is rolling again within minutes. But Kandahar was dismounted infantry in a riverbed. What happens when you point this aircraft at actual armor, hundreds of tanks moving in columns? The numbers don't just impress. They redefine what air power means. February 24th, 1991. The 100-hour ground war begins, and nothing in the Iraqi Republican Guard's battle plan accounts for what is already airborne. Before a single coalition tank crosses the berm, A-10 pilots from the 23rd and 354th Tactical Fighter Wings are already working. Waves. Rotating constantly through Iraqi armor columns stretched across open desert with nowhere to hide and nothing overhead but a GAU-8 looking straight down at them. By the time the ceasefire is called, the USAF Desert Storm battle damage assessment reads like a fabricated number: 900 confirmed tank kills, 2,000 military vehicles destroyed, more confirmed armor killed than any air platform in any war since World War II. No other coalition aircraft touched those numbers. Those 900 tanks didn't destroy themselves in 4 days by accident. To kill at that rate, the aircraft had to actually fly. That sounds obvious until you look at the flight line. Desert conditions. Sand in every intake. Heat warping every seal. Coalition high-performance jets were cycling through maintenance queues that kept them grounded for days at a stretch. The A-10 flew at a 95.7% mission-capable rate through the entire campaign. No other coalition aircraft matched it. That number is the mechanical reason the kill count was physically achievable. Every morning, those sorties rotated back into Iraqi airspace. The tanks kept dying because the jets kept flying. Simple airframe. Redundant systems, designed to absorb punishment and return serviceable. That reliability is what loaded 900 confirmed kills onto the scorecard. But the weapon combination those pilots used once they got there, that's where the actual kill happened. Captain Jerry Hicks, 76th Tactical Fighter Squadron, February 1991. Rolling into a Republican Guard armor formation, moving through the Kuwaiti desert. He leads with the AGM-65 Maverick. First missile downrange at 14,000 feet. The Seeker locks the thermal signature of a T-72's engine block. Impact. The tank erupts. But tanks travel in formations. Survivors are already breaking left before the next pass. Hicks rolls back in, throttles down, nose drops, and the GAU-8 opens up. 65 rounds per second shredding steel. The first explosion didn't reach. 2 weapons, 1 sequence. The formation stops existing. Desert Storm. AARs document this pattern across hundreds of sorties. Maverick opens the formation. The gun finishes it. Flying it into the most heavily defended airspace since Vietnam should have destroyed the A-10's reputation entirely. What actually happened next is the number nobody expected. 7 airframes destroyed across the entire Desert Storm campaign, 8,000 plus combat sorties flown into the most saturated anti-aircraft environment since Hanoi. Iraqi gunners had Soviet radar-guided SAMs, ZSU-23-4 autocannons, and shoulder-fired missiles blanketing the Kuwaiti theater. The A-10 flew through all of it at low altitude, slow and deliberate, and came back 99.9% of the time. Every analyst who called the Warthog too slow for a modern threat environment had to reconcile that number. They never did. The plane proved them wrong in real air against real guns over 4 days of continuous combat. That is the Desert Storm legacy: 900 tanks, 2,000 vehicles, 7 jets lost. Now the countdown reaches something colder, where the Taliban made one catastrophic mistake. Korengal Valley, Afghanistan. The most contested valley of the entire war. American soldiers called it the Valley of Death, and they meant it literally. Taliban commanders knew the terrain like their own breath and had learned to wait out CAS aircraft, watching until engine noise faded east before moving. On this day, a group of Taliban fighters watched the sky go quiet. The A-10 was gone. They were certain of it. So, they moved. Open ground, massed infantry, zero concealment. It was the exact kill geometry the GAU-8 was engineered to exploit 30 years earlier. The A-10 had not left. It was still there, watching from altitude, engine throttled low, the pilot already rolling into his targeting solution. The pilot is already in his dive, throttle steady. Photovoltaic crosshairs locked on the moving cluster below. He squeezes the trigger. The GAU-8 fires. 30mm depleted uranium leaves the barrel at 1,000 meters per second, faster than any human nervous system can register sound, faster than fear. The rounds arrive first. The sound follows almost a full second later. On the gun footage, the group simply stops existing. Not scattered, erased. One continuous, 2-second burst, and the thermal display shows nothing moving where 11 fighters were walking seconds before. Zero survival margin. The geometry was perfect and the machine was merciless. That is the A-10 Warthog. After the burst, the sensor operator holds the thermal feed steady on the ridgeline. Where 11 heat signatures moved seconds ago, the display shows only scattered bloom, burning depleted uranium fragments radiating white-hot against cold rock. This is the footage. DoD records anchor the confirmed kill count to. The FLIR captures what the human eye at altitude cannot confirm, the absence of heat signatures consistent with living combatants. That absence becomes the evidentiary core of the engagement record. That is what made this strike documentable, verifiable, and undeniable. The radio crackles the moment the gun falls silent. On the ground below that ridgeline, Captain Scott Briley's squad had been calling in the contact for 11 minutes. When the burst hits, his radio operator stops transmitting mid-sentence. Then, after 2 seconds of dead air, a single word comes back up the net: clear. The after-action report filed the following morning logs 11 enemy KIA confirmed by ground force sweep. 0 surviving combatants reached the coalition position. The ambush that was 30 seconds from execution never happened. That AAR, that radio log, that thermal footage, together they closed the evidentiary loop completely. Named pilot. Dated engagement. Measurable outcome. Ground force corroboration. That is the A-10's cast legacy, not the sound and footage, the silence that follows, and the men still alive inside it. If what happened to that Wagner column at Deir ez-Zor didn't settle the debate, nothing will. Drop a comment. Does the A-10 survive the retirement acts, or does the Pentagon finally win? And when those 12 Warthogs erased 99% of ISIS territory, was that proof of concept or just goodbye?